There's probably an exploded jar of Vegemite all over far north Queensland because they did have Vegemite as the payload for this first test flight attempt.
Well, that's very fitting.
I did like that. I thought that was a very nice touch. Look, congrats to everyone at Gilmore Space. Hello and welcome, Budri Gamawara from the Gadigal Lands here in Sydney. It's time for Startup 360, the weekly podcast from Startup Daily, a private media company, something I have to practice a little bit. I'm Simon Thompson, editor of startupdaily.net. Happy horse's birthday to Magella Campbell. It's August 1. So if you were a horse, a golden palomino, I reckon, it would be your birthday.
Well, if only. Yep. Could have celebrated.
How's the week been?
It's been good. It has...
How's the packing up going?
Good. Very good.
Well, this is your final month now.
I know. The countdown is well and truly on. We are, in the midst of packing boxes and decluttering. I can't tell you how much stuff you accumulate over the course of 6 years of being in a space. So,
having moved houses a few times, I do know that feeling.
Yeah, just like compound that by like 300 startups.
Yeah, I can imagine. Are you finding a bunch of old T-shirts, old swag from startups?
Lots of event space, like people who have left stuff there. Yeah. That's been the biggest one. We've got about like 1,200 banners just sitting there. So.
Oh gosh, some of them might be ours.
I'll let you know.
I better send Ella over to check, find out. Because, you lose them and it's like, where do we do something and where could they be?
Well, they're probably at fish banners.
Yep, all right. Well, there you go. If you're missing a banner, head down to Fishies in the next couple of weeks, ask for Magella.
Or if you're in the market for one and you don't care what brand it has on it.
Yeah, well, you could sort of very cheaply rebrand your business with someone else's old banner.
It's perfect.
Look, before we go any further, I do want to say that Startup 360 is supported by Vanta, helping startups unlock market opportunities through automated compliance, which leads me to my clever idea of today. Let's go into what I'm now going to call the Vanta Banter.
I love it. It's such a great name.
All right, so let's have the Vanta Banter. First one for this week in what's been happening in the news. Breaking news. We record this on a Wednesday for Friday, and of course, Gilmore Space at 8:30 this morning up in Bowen in Queensland, up in the far north, amid all the lovely trees and mountains, sent their 23-metre, 30-tonne Eris rocket into the air. Unfortunately, it only went up around about 100 metres. Didn't quite have the thrust, I think, that they were hoping for, and kind of went sideways a little bit from the launch pad, and 14 seconds later, back to Earth, and a couple of minutes later, kaboom. But the nice part about it is, got off the pad, I am happy, was the quote that Adam Gilmore, the co-founder and CEO of Gilmore Space, said when about an hour or two afterwards. So he's upbeat. And when I think about the number of times that, the Starship from SpaceX was blown up this year, that was a good first crack, really. That's an Australian designed and built rocket using hybrid fuel. As he said, thankfully, no injuries, no environmental damage, which is all great news. And they're hoping to get going. They've got another rocket in production. I suppose you have to keep them going when you're doing this bit.
I can't imagine that rebuild, that process.
Yeah. Probably the most environmental damage in the whole thing is there's probably an exploded jar of Vegemite all over far north Queensland because they did have Vegemite as the payload for this first test flight attempt.
Well, that's very fitting.
I did like that. I thought that was a very nice touch. Look, congrats to everyone at Gilmore Space, and of course some incredible backers along the way. They've raised about 142 mil in funding over the years. Governments backed them, both state, local and federal. They built that space hub at Bowen in Queensland. It's about 200k from Townsville, and if you have a look at the photo, you'll see this beautiful shot of the landscape around, lots of trees. It's a remote but really cool place to do it. And they have worked so hard on an incredibly novel idea. When you think about it, and Adam makes this point, there are 6 countries in the world right now, just 6, who are launching rockets into space. So we have a chance to be 7. There's only a dozen all up who've ever done it.
Wow.
So I absolutely have my fingers crossed for them. 12 years old now, based on the Gold Coast, more than 200 people working there. I love the rocket stuff. You know, it goes back to being a Thunderbirds fan as a child. I used to get up at 6 a.m. and watch it on Channel 9 on a Saturday morning, and the whole space thing still blows me away. Congrats also to Josh Keegan, who I was following on YouTube. He's known as Aussie Naut on there and social media. Massive fan of the work he does covering it. So he was there filming it, and that's how we kind of found out what was going on. And his point at the time was rocket didn't quite have enough thrust. So anyway, you know, pack a few more bungers in the bottom and see what happens, I suppose, is the next plan.
Yep.
But lots of data, of course. This is the thing. You have to sort of
You've got to launch to make it happen, you know. Otherwise, you'll always be sitting on the ground. So.
Yeah, and see what you learn from that. Now, before we go any further with our banter, we should talk about who we're going to have on the show today.
We are. So we've got 3 guests today.
Yes.
2.
Bonus 50%.
Yeah.
Guests.
So we've got our first 2 guests, Bella Filacuridi and Sophie Greiner from Dome, which are actually a podcast startup.
There you go. So amazing. And guess what? Today is Grill Your Boss Day.
Yep.
Will Hayward, the CEO of Private Media, as you know, last week the news was that Pinstripe Media, which includes Startup Daily and Business Builders and Your Money, Your Life and Flying Solo, and of course the fabulous production team here that makes shows like Startup 360, we've all joined Private Media, who are the publishers of Smart Company and Crikey and this wonderful public service publication that flies under the radar but is really greatly loved, called The Mandarin. So we're one big family now, and we've kind of gone from small business to small medium in that. So we're still sort of, you know, lunging at the giants.
Yeah.
You know? David has got a little bit bigger up against Goliath. But
and that's important. Especially in Australia. We need more of those people going in.
So we're going to have Will in for 10X, and this is my chance to, you know, just
grill your boss.
Grill a boss. So it'll be good. Now, other big news this week, of course, YouTube is going to be added to the government's social media ban for under 16s. And Google has been threatening, the owner of YouTube has been threatening to sue the government if this goes ahead. How do you feel about this? Because I am ready to grab the popcorn, head down to the federal court and watch. Because I reckon that would be fun.
You're going to put it in DD loop.
Yeah, totally. Look, I don't think it's a bad thing. I do remember there was a podcast on the New York Times a couple of years back, and I think it was called The Rabbit Hole or something like that. But it was all about how you would end up on YouTube and get radicalised, or, you know, young men especially were sort of going into some very dark places because the YouTube algorithm was taking them there. And, you know, YouTube kind of did this initial denial, and the CEO at the time, you know, then said, okay, well, we'll have to deal with this. But it's still happening. It's still going on. We're still dealing with the same issues that tech companies over and over again promise that they're going to address, because they're incentivized to head in the opposite direction to the one that they say they want to be in.
Yeah.
You don't get to monetize being nice. It's nowhere nearly as valuable as being a complete dickhead.
No, absolutely. I'd be really interested to see. I don't have kids, so I feel like I'm on a different fence. Like a lot of the friends that I talk to, they're sort of like against it, and they would want their kids to be able to have access to what they need to have access to. But I feel like it's a good thing.
Well, can I just point out that they still have access? The point is you won't technically, and let's put aside all the stuff about facial recognition, all of that no one is being stopped if there's an adult in the room. That's the thing. So, you know, if you're a teacher and you're still using YouTube as an asset to teach kids various things, that's fine. You know, if you're a parent and your children are watching, you know, Minecraft videos, or, you know, whatever ABC show it is, or even Startup 360. Kids, watch Startup 360. You could grow up to be a billionaire one day.
Never too early.
That's all possible.
Yeah.
But when it comes to logging in, no, you have to be over 16.
Yes.
So, you know, it's not, everyone sort of thinks it's some kind of Taliban, everyone in burqas
No, of course.
thing.
But, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's so interesting watching, I guess, kids like evolve and stuff these days, because they're brilliant in the way that they just know things and learn things so quickly, and they're so like self-driven in terms of like being able to use technology, and what they know is just, I used to nanny this kid, and he taught himself how to read just using his phone. And I think we're just up against, he's a genius, and I'm sure he's gonna like solve big world problems one day. But like he was able to use voice to text and everything like that. He just worked it all out himself. So I feel like we're heading into this very different, chapter of the world and evolution. And I think that it's really important to have the right tools in place because the outcomes are really dire if they're not.
I do remember when our kids were younger and Sally, my wife, their mum, was publishing cookbooks, physical cookbooks, for some great chefs. And of course, our kids who were already part of the iPad generation would get the book and try and go like this to expand the picture in a book, which I think for me was a reminder that, the digital native way of thinking is very different,
So different
in experience.
Have you heard of the phone thing? It's like...
The phone thing.
The phone thing. Like if you go like, give you the gesture of like you answering a phone call.
All right. Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah, right. All the kids these days do this, or like a phone, like an iPhone. They don't do these because they can't flip it. Like all these little things are changing.
Language is changing, even emoji language, I suppose.
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
I still want to do a trivia night with a fax sound, or the 44 Mbps dial-up internet sound that I grew up with. But look, one more thing I want to talk about before we get Bella and Sophie in, and that, of course, is Annie Liao from Build Club. Cool deal we announced on startupdaily.net this week with Lovable. That's the best thing to come out of IKEA since Sweden since IKEA, and of course ABBA, the best ever thing to come out of Sweden. And my Volvo. I quite like Volvos.
Volvos are great.
But I'm a Volvo driver.
I want to be a Volvo driver.
I probably should wear a hat when I drive, but I just, Anyway, look, congrats to her. They've been doing a program together already, and what they've done is the Lovable Learning Academy to teach people AI. And Lovable, of course, is one of the hottest AI startups around at the moment. Everyone's throwing their money at it, and it's growing at a rapid rate. And it's only about 12 months old or so, I think.
So, yeah, it's like super fast growing.
Yeah, and it's already worth several $1 billion. But, of course, it's all about vibe coding. So Annie's helping get the vibe going for people who want to do it and go down this path. And, we talk about how important it is to be able to talk AI and how to do it well. So she's getting people on the first steps of that journey. They can learn online. Build Club is an e-learning platform, and the partnership with Lovable looks fantastic.
It makes complete sense. I feel like two great things coming together as one. What else could you want, really?
Yeah. So well done to her. Some great Australian startups doing amazing things. Blowing shit up, I reckon, is fun though. I do
Is that a
wonder.
rocket pun?
Adam, give me a call. Tell me, did you just enjoy it a little bit when the whole thing went kaboom? But the one thing I have to say about them is they use a hybrid fuel that they've developed themselves, which is cheaper, easier to create, and of course more environmentally friendly. So there wasn't any damage on that front, and I just think that's fantastic and clever. And when it does all work, and it will all work, we're going to have the best rockets in the world.
I'm excited.
Up yours, Donald Trump. Well, shall we take a quick break and we'll get our first guest in?
On that note.
All right, we'll be right back with Bella and Sophie from Dome.
Hello and welcome back to Startup 360. We are joined with Bella and Soph from Dome. Welcome, guys.
Hi, happy to be here.
This is great. This is our
Shall we
first...
just put them in charge, given they're the podcasting gurus?
We'll
just kick back?
I feel very underqualified to be in this room right now.
You're already setting us up for failure.
Yeah.
Right there.
Well, that's so startup vibe. If you're going to fail.
Well,
Fail fast, Simon, fail fast.
Yeah, we can get this done in about 30 seconds, I reckon.
Too easy. How are we going so far?
Yeah. Excellent. All right, tell us about Dome. What's going on?
Yeah, so Dome is a podcast, community and analytics platform. Our whole mission is about creating communities around shared passions. So if we took the Startup 360 audience as an example, so we'd get all the listeners from Startup 360 onto Dome. But all three
Me and
of them.
Simon.
We get them, and Linda. We'll be there with you.
Mum and Dad.
We get them all onto Dome, and that's basically a community platform that has very listener-forward, podcast-specific discussion features. So, interest-based chats, location-based chats, meetup functionality. Get them engaging in there. And then we analyze all that engagement data so we can give back to you guys as hosts a really clear idea of who your listeners are, what's working, what's not, so that you can create data-driven content decisions, but probably more exciting to you, really maximize your sponsorship opportunities by going to a brand and going, hey, these are who our listeners are, and we know exactly, the demographics and how they're engaging, that means we can actually charge you more money to be advertising through us.
So what's the difference between that and somewhere like Spotify or Apple or all the others that are already distribution channels for podcasts?
Well, I think the key word there is distribution. And I think for us, we're all about that post-streaming experience. So we are not looking to turn the heads of the Spotifys, the Apple Podcasts, who are looking at that distribution streaming experience, where you go after you've streamed on Spotify, you go, great. Right now you can leave a comment on Spotify and that's all well and good. You can leave a comment on Instagram. But to really go into the depth of the topics that you talk about on these podcasts, for example, ones about self-development, business, there's a lot of, really meaningful engagement that can come from that. But we think that the current way that you can engage post-podcast, it's just not good enough. So that's where you'd come to Dome for more in-depth engagement.
So they can find out just how shit my dad jokes really are.
That's it.
Yeah.
Exactly right. There's a whole thread in that.
Well, I think we need to sign up. I think that's the only way to go forward from here.
Totally.
We've got both of you in the room today, which is so awesome. I love your co-founder origin story. I mean, you guys both met at an International Women's Day event and, you bonded over your obsession. I think it was Shameless Media. Is that still the number one podcast? Or?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's
so many pods.
We do love a lot. Shameless is definitely up there.
Yeah, there's a lot in the rotation. But yeah, it was at Fishburners last year, the RWD event. Yeah. It's a very full circle.
There's probably a banner of theirs lying there somewhere.
Probably.
Probably. You know how those events can be. They can be a little bit daunting. So we both sort of went alone. I was sort of looking to get into sort of startup space, see what's going on, see some pictures. There was an awesome panel and got stuck in a conversation that wasn't going to anywhere. Didn't have an exit strat. See this bright green bag in my peripheral and just sort of go, great bag, love it. And that was Soph picking up on my cues, and she came over and we just sort of started talking and beeline to the bar and figured out as you do. And found our love for Shameless, for so many podcasts. And that was sort of, that's how it went, yeah.
What took you from a conversation to let's go build something?
Yeah, it's funny because at the time I was building a different version of Dome with a different team, and the mission was still the same. It was all about creating communities around shared passions, but the execution of it was just, I sort of had an idea that I loved, the idea of fandom, and that's where the name Dome comes from, kingdom of fans. And how strangers can become soulmates over a shared passion in the entertainment and sports industry, and that's all great. And went, great, I love that idea. Let's go build it. Found people that could build it, had this really skilled and experienced team, but missed the million steps of, really ideating something, validating it, proving it out. Didn't do any of that. So just had this app and was sort of struggling with it. On the way out to separating with my initial team as well, who were in a very different stage of life to me. So it was really the sliding doors moment of that with Dome and sort of going, where do I go next with this? And then meeting Belle, who has this incredible, a lot of experience in product strategy and, I get it wrong every time. Digital, you got it, what is it? Digital innovation.
Come on, you guys have got to be finishing each other's sentences already.
Yeah, but product
all the
strategy,
things that I didn't
disruptive
understand.
design.
Yes, and I was able to show her Dome, and she just went, bang, here's an entire SWOT analysis of your platform and all the things that you should be doing that you aren't doing now. And off the back of our conversation about podcasts, we just worked out this niche and really understanding, the passions that arise there, but also me at working directly in the podcast ecosystem. It all sort of fell into place quite well. So it was this sliding doors moment to go, all right, let's start building this out.
Well, so you did this Red Bull basement competition. Tell us a little bit about that, because you didn't have to dive off a cliff or fly a plane at low levels at great speed.
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah, we were doing all the training for that, just in case, but no. So we found out about the Red Bull Basement competition, which is a global event or competition that they run across, I think, 40 odd different countries around the world. And we found out, of course, the day before submissions were due, just on Instagram.
Obviously.
Yeah, as it tends to go with us.
Hustle.
We're good at that.
Yeah, and just sort of threw our hat in the ring and filled out the application, and then, found out we got through the next round, pitch interview. And then pretty shortly after that, we got the call that we were going to rep Australia and go to Tokyo. So I sort of had to chat to my work and be like, so there's this thing I'm doing.
Yeah.
That's kind of escalated a little bit.
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure.
Yeah.
And have that conversation, which is really exciting. So, yeah, and the next thing you know, we're going to Tokyo and met the most incredible founders, and I think that energy is just unreal from all over the world, and got to spend a bunch of time with them and mentors from Microsoft and AMD and all sort of areas of business, and really work on Dome and the value prop and our pitch. And throughout that process, we actually then got selected to be top 10 out of those 40 countries to then pitch on the global stage for a panel of judges as well. So that was actually our first pitch as a company as well, which I don't know how we'll top that, to be honest.
No, we've struggled to top that since.
Yeah.
But I think what's even funnier is, as Belle said, she literally had to go to the office and say, so I'm doing this thing. It's kind of escalated crazily in the past, few months, because we're lying in these twin beds in Shinjuku going, we met a couple months ago, and now we're looking out into this insane view in this crazy city, having an experience that I don't think either of us could have imagined up. Like, that is, I think, the nature of doing a startup, just 1 month being out of your wildest dreams, different from the next.
That's great. I want to talk a little bit about work. So balancing starting a startup and working. I mean, Soph, I think, are you still on a uni break, or had you taken a break from uni?
Yes, I was once a very good student. Back in the day, was a very studious girl, and have since sort of tapped in and out of uni so that I can play the student card. So there's not the pressure of having to jump straight into the 9 to 5, which has been a real privilege to be able to play that card. But no, just do part-time work with Hannah Ferguson at Cheek Media, which is great for podcasting and that network and getting real industry experience. But when it comes to real 9 to 5, all the things, it's this one that takes the cake on that.
Yeah, I think it's like typical founder story, right? If that's the start of it, that's sort of what you sign up for until you're in a position where you can sort of make that jump. But yeah, I mean, I'm really lucky. I've got incredible mentor and team who are really supportive of my, growth outside of my Accenture as well. So they've loved seeing Dome sort of come to life, and I'm sort of in product design and strategy. So I'm literally designing a product. So it's quite hand in hand there. And they've loved to sort of see the founder journey and hear about that too, which is great. But yeah, I actually just resigned on Monday, which is really exciting. A long time coming. So yeah, I'll be going full time in the next few weeks, which is very exciting.
And you haven't got Accenture going, when can we invest?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Oh, they'll miss you terribly, I'm sure. Look, I do want to ask, Soph, you were 22, I think, when this kicked off. And this was your second crack. What led to this entrepreneurial spirit in you that has you doing the startups?
As I said, I was always very traditional in the way that I saw the trajectory of my life going. It was very, you finish school, you go to uni, you go to the job, you start climbing that ladder. And I still think there's a huge amount of merit in doing that as well. And that was always what I planned to do. Although I was initially doing a degree in law, and in my brain, I just needed to be around like the entertainment space, something in that media sphere, because it's always been what has really drawn me, super passionate about it. And it was really when I had this idea for the first iteration of Dome, which was all about that space and very different to what I had been doing previously. And I just, the excitement of being able to look at a problem or really learn as much as you can about a problem and go, okay, if someone's going to fix this, why can't it be me? And just seeing what I could do to do that, that really excited me and was something really, really new to what I'd always known. And so, I'm very lucky that I was able to ask and knock on every single door around me to see who would be, able to help me bring this to life, the first version. And I was able to do that. And although it didn't, the first version isn't what it is today, the amount that I learnt in that time was so crazy, and something I will always cherish, and is such an important, milestone for us as we look forward to all the mistakes and all the failings from that first version. We now can bring into the second and know how to not do that, or the network opportunities, the connections made. So yeah, and it's made finishing what should have been a degree finished a while ago quite difficult, I will say, but I think there's absolutely merit in doing that as well, and I'm just really excited that I now have this incredible team. The two of us here, we also have a technical co-founder who's brilliant as well, as of recently, that are all equally passionate and ambitious to bring this to life. So that's really, really the most exciting part.
There is no hurry. I was talking to a friend this week who's just done her arts degree in her 50s, and given I've had a couple of stabs and done a similar thing, it's probably so long ago now that none of the credits I have are worth anything. but yeah, look, you'll get there when you need to get there.
Absolutely. And I think there's also a lot of privilege in being young, and I'm very grateful that I am in a position where I can, be at home, and so I'm not relying on the big things like, kids and rent and all that sort of stuff. So it's, what better time to be able to take a crazy risk and do something that's...
And if you're going to buy a house in Sydney, you're just going to have a very successful startup.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
The only way.
I don't know if we're putting down a deposit for a house anytime soon. But, one day.
Soon.
When it's very successful.
Yeah, exactly right.
I want to talk a little bit about the co-founder dynamics, because you've spoken, I think, Bella, you're the big picture thinker, and Soph's the big picture, Bella's the details. Is that the secret sauce to a really good co-founder relationship, or what really makes you guys tick?
I think so. We kind of go in between, I would say, of those roles. But I think just, back to our origin story and how we met, that was just one of the things that I really admire about Soph, is her ability to just see the vision and see the future of this industry, and and the power of fandom, and the way she can sort of tell a story, and it was so sort of impactful. And then, I sort of come into it, I'm like, great, what are the steps? What's the, spot the consultant. What are the framework we're using? All that sort of that stuff as well. But yeah, so I think that's been really key to how we come at different problems, is sort of, balancing that big picture thinking, but then also being quite tactic based as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we also are good at we're really good at getting each other very excited, and I think that I'm always reminded of a quote that my dad says to me a lot, which is, don't over-celebrate the wins, don't catastrophize the losses. And I think that I always come back to that when Bella and I are kind of hyping each other up a little bit and going a bit crazy, and I think it's really good to just have someone that can keep you in check, have balances on each other, and I think that's great when you have a two-person team, but having a third person in that dynamic as well. And as I said before, we've recently had a technical co-founder join who's absolutely brilliant and brings the whole picture together, because it's funny, it's hard to build a tech company with not a lot of knowledge of the tech world, and not a lot of capabilities technically, which is an interesting thing, Simon. I don't know if you've ever sort of tried that, but it's not something I'd recommend. So to have someone that can really piece it all together as we're going, massive big picture, and these are all the frameworks, this is how we're going to map it out, to someone going, okay, but the actual execution of this is technically feasible or not for these ways.
It's a really important part. You only have to look at the Cybertruck. You've got a billionaire who dreams big, and someone else has to execute and turn what is a turd into a turd, but that's a shiny turd that no one's buying. But that's another story from a different place. I want to ask you about podcasting, because one of the numbers that blew me away that you guys talk about, it's a $130 billion industry. And when we kicked off Startups 360, I'd done previous podcasts, and I kind of felt like they got to the point where it's like your taxi driver offering you stock market tips. Everyone's got one.
Yes,
we're all listening
absolutely.
to sort of mushroom murders, and I'm a huge fan of Scott and Cara doing Pivot. And there's a few tech podcasts I love listening to. But has the world got too many podcasts? Is there room for more of them? And what do you think, given you're thinking about community, what do you think it is that draws us to them?
Yeah, so I think it's the tale as old as time. Everyone has a podcast, and you hear of the classic people of two friends turning to each other and going, we're really funny. We should start a podcast. People will really enjoy this. And how many podcasts have we seen that have evolved into what they are? Probably because of that. And that's amazing. I think that it's true that it's like one of the most accessible medias. You can have an audience in a matter of months if you're really pulling it together, working really hard. I think a great example of that is Tony and Ryan. You know, probably two friends that turned each other, rightly so, and said, we're hilarious, let's start a podcast. Release one every single day.
Love cracking each other up.
Exactly right. And, you know, now they're one of the biggest voices in Australia. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because I think that it makes people realize how many niches there are in the world that they might think that they're alone in, that there's actually this real community around. I think that podcast is a really great way to sort of cut through the noise of that. Even I met a man recently that we were sort of talking about Dome, and I said, do you listen to any podcasts? And he was like, yeah, big fan of a spearfishing one. I mean, that's pretty crazy niche. Like, it's spearfishing. And he's like, oh, it's big. It's got a big community. I mean, what's a big community in the spearfishing world? I don't know. But I think that's incredible that anyone that has this, you know, these little quirks and things can find their community. I think that's what we're trying to hit on as well, is the first thing, but also the value of that community. And going back to that valuation that you spoke about, is what I don't think we're doing well enough is being able to put maybe a monetary value on this audience, regardless of how big it is. I think we find it really interesting that a friend of ours does a podcast that has about 5,000 monthly listeners, so not huge, but still great. But they have this really engaged audience. So one of their sponsors, a big bank, says we sponsor dozens of podcasts that are triple, quadruple your size, and we get the best return on investment from you guys because you have such a niche down, engaged community. So I think we're trying to really hit on this piece of, yes, there are a lot of podcasts, but it is, if we can work out how you can get the quality of that beyond the number of listeners or downloads, that's really going to be the secret sauce there to making the most of that $131 billion valuation.
I should give a big shout out to Adam Spencer and the Welcome to Day One team too. Love the work they've done. Love that amazing history of Australian startups that he put together. And there's a whole bunch of other great podcasts to listen on there too.
So many startup podcasts.
There is, but ours is the best. Okay?
Oh yeah, famously.
Always
Different, a little bit different.
Speaking a lot about community, I mean, what's the challenge that you guys really see about mixing the human, the business, and the tech to be able to create this really great business all around, or startup?
Yeah, I think right now, if you look at the podcasting ecosystem, it's incredibly fragmented. So you've really hit the nail on the head. You've got your streaming services, maybe it's generic sort of community platforms, and then, maybe it's more so your Patreons and where creators can sort of make more money but having to create, more content. So I think through all of our conversations we've had with podcasters, that's sort of the crux of it, is that all these systems aren't talking together, and that's why it's really hard to have that through line of measuring and quantifying your audience value, so you can understand who your community is, what drives them, what content resonates, and then how can you best position yourself to sponsors to get that best return on ad spend. So I think it is down to that fragmentation that we're seeing across the ecosystem.
Have you two figured out what annoys the hell out of each other about each other yet?
I love that question.
Oh God!
You just opened up a can of worms, like you're just making.
Yeah, and let's go about therapy chats for a second. Yeah, exactly.
It is
right.
Startup 360, so we can give 360s in the middle.
Well, yeah, we're going there.
Yeah, I love that. What is the thing that? Oh, it's funny because I actually was having this thought literally last night about how you really become, like, you hear, like, you have co-founders, it's a marriage and all the things, but I feel like it's more of this like sibling relationship between the two of us. And
I thought you were going to say it's like your pets and you start looking like
that
each other.
was the other thing. Yes, it's very similar to that, and we keep her on a tight leash. But I think because you spend so much time together, and it's so important to us, and I think a real core value of our team is just really open, honest communication, having the hard conversations up front. As soon as you can have them, the longer you wait, the harder it'll get. I think that because we've been doing that from day one, we're all, obviously still learning and getting better at it, but quite good at it. And I think we're in a good position that we can disagree comfortably with each other, and we really value each other's opinion and respect each other's opinion to go, okay, look, if we're not going to land on this, like, what's the way around here? Because it's not going to be something that we're going to sweep under the rug, because then we get lumpy rugs. We don't want lumpy rugs.
We don't want that.
So I think that's what we're conscious of. But if we really want to irritate each other, how do we do it?
That's
Mel?
true sibling.
Yeah, 'cause that's the best part,
Yeah.
you know. And we both have siblings, so we know how to do
We get it. God, what is it? I mean, Soph is like famously chronically online. She's like very into the meme culture, like just on it.
Need to
Me,
understand.
like not so much. So I think I irritate you because she has to just try. I feel like a boomer. Like it's embarrassing. Like she has to translate so many things, and she's just like, I can see her just like, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm sorry, but if 3 years has now become a generational
Yeah, oh,
difference,
it's
I'm
scary.
in
This
trouble.
is a real thing.
Oh,
like
it's scary.
everyone at my work is always like, you know, like the thing. I'm like, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can't have nice things. I can't have Instagram or TikTok because I get obsessed with it and I can't put it down. So it's better to be without. But it's a real thing. It's a real divide.
But can I just say, I reckon the mission statement in any business that wants to get along, no lumpy rugs.
I love it.
That's it.
It's a
I
real
think that
I'm
is
thing.
planning
no
on getting it
lumpy rugs.
tatted. I think the four of us, we get matching tats, no lumpy rugs.
Yeah,
put it
anyone
on
in
a
HR,
t-shirt.
no lumpy rugs should be on the door.
There we go.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right?
Perfect. That's a really great
Flies
way of
off the
putting it.
shelf.
I do want to ask you about this because going back to last century, when I was alive, there was a guy who used to run this state for quite a while who happens to be your grandfather.
Is that right?
And I want to
I didn't
know
know that.
because
Circle.
you get a lot of feedback. The ultimate customer experience, I think, is being a politician because everyone's got feedback on your product. Did he teach you anything about startup thinking and life? Because Nick's led a very public life, and from US ambassador to president of the Liberal Party, distinguished political career, but he's also been a very good politician. Were there lessons from him that you can bring to startups?
1,000,000%. And I think he's been a real cheerleader for me in doing, since the first part of Dome. And I think that there was a little bit of apprehension when I told my family that I was going to drop various degrees and things like that. And I think he's always been incredible. All his grandkids are doing, very different things, and he's been unconditionally supportive. So I'm very grateful for that. But he's also the most intelligent, mad person I know. Probably second to my grandmother, who would take the cake. Catherine, yes, she would. But between the two of them, I think that they have this great blend of he is so incredibly intelligent and articulate in, how he's able to sort of, he's very blunt, but I think in a really good way. And I think it takes him a matter of sentences to get a really big picture across. I think it's really hard to do, and something that I'm conscious of, and being direct and concise I think is quite important. But then on the other side, my grandma, Catherine, has the ability to walk into any room, see anyone, and recognize the tiniest little memories, the details, and make someone feel like they are her best friend. And I think that combination of being able to be direct, but also having her skill of that warmth and making someone feel, so important just through a conversation is really, really important, because networking community in startups, and particularly with what we're trying to build, is everything. So if I can get even a sliver of what they were able to achieve professionally and personally through our family, then I'll be very, very grateful. So, yeah.
I get the feeling there are 3 generations of Greiner households that have very smooth rugs in them. No lumps.
Oh, we'd love you to think that. We'd love you to think that. No.
And that's on politics.
My final question for you guys is, what is the day in the life of Sophie and Bella? Like, what does it look like running your early stage startup on the day-to-day level, I should add?
Yeah, it's a lot. I think, it's about to look very different with me coming on full time. But what it has been in the last sort of couple months, it's been, we sort of went through the Techstars application process, which was, we made to the final round, top 20. I think it was out of 560 odd applications, which we were, super proud of. But got knocked out at the last bit, which was, got some awesome feedback, and it was really a bit of a mini accelerator for us. So I think the last 6 weeks has been really much that, and it's been me, doing my 9 to 5, and then lunch breaks, taking a call here and there before, after work. That's what you sign up for at this early stage. But I think it's talking to customers as long as as much as we can, and podcasters, really getting as close to the industry as we can. Obviously, Soph being at Cheek Media has really, really helped us there. And it's also bringing on our new technical co-founder. In the space of 6 weeks, we're able to build 2 different demos, redesign our business model, validate that, and that sort of set us up now for our next MVP that will be going out in a couple of months. So, yeah, we've got some of the country's top podcasts waiting to be on that as well, which is really exciting. So, yeah,
I didn't know we'd signed up.
I didn't realise.
Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing.
Snap.
It's a comedy pod.
Comedy pod. So, yeah, it's been very, products mode, which we're, been really excited about.
This is going to be an amazing adventure. So looking forward to following it and telling your story on startupdaily.net. Soph, Belle, thanks for joining us here on Startup 360. And here's to Dome. Knock it out of the park, girlfriends.
That's it. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
Fun.
It's awesome.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Will Hayward, the CEO of Private Media. Don't go away.
Welcome back to Startup 360, and we are joined here with Will. Welcome, Will. And
thank you.
A huge congratulations. We've got big things
He was so
coming this
impressed he
way.
bought me.
Absolutely. I mean, it was 18 months to get Simon off Koshi. That was basically the fight. Like 80. I mean, there were tears.
Yeah.
There was a breakdown. It was.
We should
It was
explain
and
to
screaming.
our listeners and viewers. So Will Hayward is the CEO of Private Media, the company that publishes Crikey, Smart Company, The Mandarin. And as of Friday afternoon, I became an employee along with all the team at Private Media here in Sydney. Oh,
Pinstripe Media. Now
See, I'm
Private
already,
Media.
but I'm on brand. I'm saying Private Media.
Good mistake.
Yeah. Pinstripe Media, David Kosh's family business, was acquired by Private Media. So we're all part of this new family, and we've got the boss on for the first one. Welcome,
Indeed.
Will.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I'm excited. Can we start with a boring M&A question? But tell me a little bit about the process of joining forces. I'm so intrigued.
Yeah, so it was a very long process. So I joined the company about 5 years ago. I mean, media is a scale enterprise. You want to be a big media company. Being a small media company is really hard. And so we have had our eye on trying to expand inorganically. We've done a lot to grow organically. So we've almost trebled the size of the company in that 5-year period. But we've been looking at targets that we thought we could add a lot of value to. Nonetheless, I mean, everyone is very familiar with all of the caution that exists around M&A. So I'll screw up the quote, but Warren Buffett says M&A is generally a great deal for the seller and generally a very bad deal for the buyer.
Hello, Twitter.
And, well, not so bad. I mean,
Depends on what you want out of it.
Depends, what your desired outcome is. But another famous Buffett quote is that you want any deal you do, particularly the first one, to be one that you look at and just think, we have to do this. It's too good to not do. And for us, we've spent 15 years investing in small business and startup coverage. We've got a great team of journalists that have worked very hard at kind of building some meaningful brands there and adding a lot of value to that community. And there's one other company that has done exactly the same thing. So for the last 15 years, the Pinstripe family have worked incredibly hard. They've hired some great journalists. They've also hired Simon. As a result, they've built some great brands and cross-platform and doing some fantastic work in TV and audio and video, as we can see here. And on the commercial side, when we won, I mean, most of our journalism in this part of the business, in other parts of the business it's very different, but most of our journalism in the smart company side is funded by advertising. And when we won a deal, it was normally at the expense of Pinstripe. And when we lost a deal, it was normally because of Pinstripe. And so that was a really good leading indicator that if we could bring these two companies together, there should be a significant value unlock. And that was the original view. And so I started conversations many, many months ago with the Pinstripe team. And the more we looked at it and the more we kind of opened our books and kind of looked at the way that it could work, the more it made sense. It was long, it was hard. I suspect if I didn't have this haircut already, I would have a haircut similar to this as a result all of the late nights. We have a fantastic team at Private Media who work very hard at the deal. So we hired someone called I Maudsley about 4 years ago actually, who comes from an M&A background. And so we could do all of the due diligence in-house ourselves, largely do it in-house. We had a little bit of external help. But it's been long, it's been tough, but really, really happy to be here. We're very passionate about the brands. We're very passionate about this podcast. We think it's fantastic. We think that what you guys have built in a pretty short period of time is amazing. So it's very sad that we're going to have to end it. No, so it's
This will be the last episode.
It's great to be here.
Let's wait till he hears the questions.
So the vast majority of registered businesses in Australia employ fewer than 200 people. So we think there's a big gap. We think there's a big need. We've been working very hard to satisfy that need. These pesky guys called the Pinstripe team have been working very hard as well and with great efficacy. And so we're very excited to bring it together. And there's a lot to do, but very much looking forward to it.
If you're going to answer every question like that, this is going to be a very long show today.
I'll keep it short and sharp from now.
Well, I asked a big, long question.
That's
my fault.
But that wasn't a rapid fire question.
No, exactly. We haven't even started.
All right.
Sorry.
But I do want to say, AJ from the Pinstripe side called us frenemies. And of course, I have a lot of respect for the people on the smart company side who I've worked with over the years. So it's a cool thing. Now, you have a very thick Melbourne accent. So let's just hear your story, Will, quickly.
God, Jesus, quickly. Okay, so I moved here 7.5 years ago. At that point in time, I had I still have a wonderful Australian wife, I should say. I had 2 beautiful English boys. Fast forward 7.5 years, I now have 3 Australian reprobates. They have bad hair. They call things the wrong way. They have sort of 7 vowels in the word no.
7 meanings for the word no.
Maybe. And so I've spent all my career in media. I worked for The Economist, The Wall Street Journal. I ran BuzzFeed in Europe, moved to Australia, as I said, several years ago, and love living here. I think Australia is a phenomenal country. Obviously, like any country, it's got its challenges, but I think it's a great place to be, a great place to live, and a wonderful place to work as well.
And there's your professorship down at Canberra Uni too.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot going on. Should we do this? Are you ready to do 10X? Do you want to kick it off?
I'm ready. So do you prefer working for big companies like BuzzFeed or working in the smaller media tech?
I don't think I'll work for a very big company again. I much prefer working for a company where you know everyone's name, you can be involved in sort of most things that the business is doing. So for me, a smaller company, but one that wants to be a big company. So maybe I want to be there when it's small, grow it, and then kind of wander off and find another one.
Well, you mentioned Wall Street Journal, The Economist, BuzzFeed here and in Europe. So I'm wondering, what did you do in a past life that has led you to be punished by working in media all your life? This one.
I don't know, Simon.
Why media?
Why media? Look, I grew up in a house. I've got a very strong memory. I would have been about 7 years old of my father saying to me, if you want to learn not only how to write properly, but how to think properly, you should read The Economist. And so I grew up in a house with a stack of economists in the corner of our living room. I have always loved journalism. I've always loved journalism's ability to help you understand what's going on in the world around you. I was never smart enough to be a journalist, so I had to kind of blag my way in through the commercial side. It's a tough category. It's a category that is probably to a certain extent in kind of a cyclical adjustment. But I'm a strong believer in the power of public interest journalism. I think Australia should have more journalists working in it. I think we need more people investigating power, more people exploring how the world works. So if what I can add to that is helping make it more sustainable, then that's what I'll dedicate my working career to.
A bit of a theme of the conversation that we've had today is talking about things failing. What's been your biggest lesson as a leader that you've had in your career so far? Going straight into the deep question.
I should have a really... I have absolutely failed at things historically. I think I probably became a senior manager too quickly. There was a period of my working career where I was running a business that in retrospect I just don't think I was qualified to. It was scaling fairly quickly and had a very sort of involved entrepreneur, sort of biggest shareholder, and it was very, very tough, and I just don't think I was qualified to do it. And so What did I learn from that? I think I learned that when something's not right, you should walk away. Like it's never worth sticking to something that's wrong. I think that I learned hopefully some humility. I think I probably learned sort of refine my ethics a little bit. But that was definitely, I mean, people say you learn more from your failures. I learned a lot from that experience.
I'm going to pick up on that one for my next question then, because it's always about having a shot above the height you can jump.
Sure.
So what's your lesson and advice in terms of when you are called into a role that feels too big for your boots, about how you tackle it and when you do decide to pull the pin?
I think there's a marked difference between being very ambitious and wanting to take on big challenges and wanting to make a really big impact, and not feeling equipped to deal with a very turbulent business that is probably having a negative impact on some people's lives. And so there's a real difference between, I want to change the world, I'm going to go raise some venture capital, I'm going to try and build a global company, and we're going to tear up the rule book and go for it. That's one thing. That is different to, I'm prepared to work for a company where the values don't align with mine. So probably, I think it's really good to be ambitious when you're an entrepreneur. I think when you're an employee, being overly ambitious is probably a slightly different thing, because you're not kind of fully in control. And so, yeah.
Now, running an independent media house is not for the faint-hearted.
No.
What do you do to keep your head clear and, weathering the storm?
So, I mean, I have some experience with storms. I'm I'm one of very few people in the world. The only other people in the world are my co-defendants, who have been sued by a direct member of the Murdoch family. So, like, I have stood in the Federal Court of New South Wales. I have gone to war with a billionaire. So, like, stress is a very real thing. Like, how do I deal with that? I have a very loving family. I have a very loving dog. I exercise a lot. I swim a lot. I read. Like, reading's probably my weird addiction that I do more probably than most people. But I don't have any secret other than that. Reading's my meditation. Exercising is the thing that sort of helps keep it in check. But sometimes all that fails. Like when like mega intense things happen, when the world falls apart around you, and I don't know, you're on the front cover of a newspaper and like journos are calling you up. That's pretty intense. And so I think at those points you need help. You need proper help. But most weeks aren't like that. That's just like some weeks.
Tell me, because you're familiar with tech and I know your wife works
Sure.
in a big tech company, can a media business ever be a tech company?
So I think it's a real mistake for media businesses to pretend they are technology companies. To give you probably the example that would be closest to a technology company. When you look at Netflix, everyone thinks like, oh, a technology business that happens to dabble in media. And actually, and this is not my idea, like there's a writer called Benedict Evans who was writing about this 10 years ago. Almost all of the big questions that Netflix currently faces are media questions. Which series do we want to commission? How do we want to interact with talent? What do we want to buy the rights to versus kind of lease the rights to? All of those questions are media questions. And Netflix's success was predominantly one of being a phenomenal media company, not a technology company. And so I think when people who do my job in any way think that the secret to success is not hiring amazing journalists who do real work that adds significant value to the audience, and actually it's about some AI summary that you put at the beginning of an article or some app, like those things matter. To the extent that we've had success at private media, a lot of that has been about investing in kind of product and technology and things like that. But you have to be absolutely clear. You're a media company that creates content that adds value to people's lives. Now, technology might facilitate that, but that's the core job.
I still think the genius of companies like Netflix is that they manage to make you rent back shit that you already owned.
I mean, you
Spotify,
probably,
same thing. It's like I've got a wall full of CDs and albums, and I'm playing the same bloody songs, but paying them for it now.
It's true.
I want someone to write the book of Simon's wisdom.
It'll be a very small
these are
book.
the pamphlet of Simon's wisdom.
Yeah, one pager.
I'd buy it.
What media trends do you see for the future? Where do you think it's all going?
Jeff Bezos says that people always ask him what's going to change, and the more interesting question is what's not going to change. I think that media and journalism that is distinctive and original and hasn't been done before will continue to be very valuable. I think the New York Times has got a great future ahead of it. I think the Wall Street Journal's got a great future ahead of it. I think the Guardian's got a great future ahead of it. All of these businesses that invest in original reporting, finding things that other people don't know, writing them down and giving them to audiences, I think there's a lot of value there. That's 90% of the answer. If you want to think about things around the edges that will change, I suspect there's a degree of unbundling of media. So I think as the cost base for very big media companies continues to be hard to justify because advertising has just come out of media, we will continue to see more and more journalists going their own way and going on their own and setting up a Substack or even setting up their own company. I worry that Australia is not big enough to really support that. So we've already seen a number of journalists do that in Australia, particularly in the last sort of 3 to 6 months. So I think we will continue to see some of that. I think the best journalists will, all joking aside, Simon included, will continue to be multimedia. They'll continue to have a very expansive view of how they deliver service. So Simon's a great writer, but he also is a great podcast host. So yeah, I think the nature of journalism or the sort of media will shift and be a little bit more expansive. I think the role of the individual journalist will probably increase in value. I think the value of the big media companies will continue to be under a great deal of pressure. But I think the core function of really good journalism will be far more similar to how it is now in 10 years than it will be in any way kind of radically different.
It's funny you should mention Jeff Bezos because this is my next question. And you didn't mention the Washington Post just then.
Sure.
But let's say Jeff rings you up and he says, look,
hey, Jeff.
I kind of, I had this rush of blood. I always thought Catherine Graham was kind of hot. And, so I bought a newspaper. What are you going to tell him? Because he's like, what do I do now?
First of all, I'm going to say I don't know how hot, whether she's hot or not has got anything to do with anything.
What do I do, Will? I've got the Washington Post. What do I do now?
I would tell, as a side note, I really enjoy telling my board that I've managed to create a media company that generates $100 million more profit than Washington Post. So it is very striking that a man who arguably knows more about the internet than anyone else has completely failed to make this thing sustainable. And let's be really clear, when he bought it, he said, I do not want to prop this thing up forever. I want it to be a viable business. And sort of a decade later, it's still losing heaps of money. And if anything, looks to currently be on a downward trajectory. The number of resignations we're seeing on a weekly basis is extraordinary. So that thing's in real it's in a really bad place. Yeah. I don't think Bezos is a good owner. I don't think he should. I think he was a good owner. I think he was great for the first 5 years. Notoriously, he didn't really get involved in newsroom decisions. That all changed in the lead up to Trump 2. I think it's probably unsustainable for him to continue to be the owner. I think he should give it away to charity. Other than that, I don't have any significant radical recommendations. I think you should probably try and reduce the cost base on the commercial or sort of institutional side to a certain extent. Any money that you can free up there, I think you want to shift into the journalism side or the production media side. But other than that, it's a phenomenal brand. If we've learned anything from the last couple of decades, it's that great media brands tend to last a lot longer than most people thought. There's a lot of value in that brand, so I certainly hope that they turn it around. I just don't know if they will do with the current owner.
Another thing is that Succession was not a documentary, it was a piece of fiction. Don't Logan, your media company. That's the message.
Yeah, agreed.
So we've heard a little bit, from this, that tech founders don't always make good media owners, we'll call it that. We've also said that, media companies shouldn't always copy tech or shouldn't always like have the tech. It's more of the vehicle. What lessons can a startup learn from the media? Do you think there are any?
Excuse me. I think the thing that is still undervalued is exposure. You had a guest on recently who was talking about the surface area of what they do and expanding the surface area. And I think every business, Jim Collins, who's sort of the greatest business journalist, I don't know if you necessarily call him a journalist, but the greatest business writer of the last couple of decades, said that the purpose of business is to find a customer. Like that's what businesses exist for. And I think every founder should, part of their brain should think of themselves as being a media company. Like, my sole mission is get my brand in front of as many of my target buyers as humanly possible, and I will do anything to do that. Now, people disagree with that. Like Peter Thiel, who, putting aside any of his kind of political views, has got a certain degree of kind of track record of success with technology companies, says that when it comes to investments, he does the complete reverse. He looks for people who don't care at all about status, don't care about exposure. All they want to do is build great product. And so maybe at the edges, like that like maniacal obsession with product indexes more towards people who aren't going to be on LinkedIn doing vertical video. But I think, and so maybe that leads to more billion-dollar companies or increases the chance of building a billion-dollar company. But I think for everyone else, behave like a media company, get out there as much as possible, be in front of people as much as possible. I think it's like a bit of a volume and exposure game.
All right, I've saved the hardest question for last.
Great, let's do it.
All right. What's your favourite Christian Petrarca recipe?
Oh,
and
you said you wouldn't bring up footy. Like, that was the
And does anyone get disappointed
we put that in the contract.
when they meet you and discover you're not actually a Sydney Swan forward?
Does anyone get disappointed when they meet me and discover I'm not?
Will Hayward is a great Swans forward.
Yeah. So there's I mean, how am I supposed to answer that question? Like,
Christian Petrarca's got a cookbook coming out.
He does have a cookbook.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather he focused on footy. I when I met my, it wasn't actually when I met my wife. When I met my now brother-in-law a decade ago, 15 years ago in London, he turns up in London. I'd met my wife 6 weeks before, and 3 pints in, he said to me, "You seem like an all right bloke, but I want you to know if this is going anywhere, you need to be a D's fan." I then spent 15 years telling people I was a D's fan. I didn't know what footy was. I didn't even, I thought it was like rugby, but you could throw the ball forward. That was about it. I am now part of a very, very focused D's family. I would like Christian to focus on the footy a little bit more. And
His
I'm sure people
is
are
really good.
I'm sure people are regularly disappointed when they meet me, irrespective of whether they're aware that there's also a footy player called Will Hayward.
Well, we'd better wrap because it's been a couple of big conversations, but have a great weekend. Go Swans, and we'll see you next Friday. Thanks for joining us on Startup 360. I do want to say thanks. This is a private media production produced and edited by the wonderful Matt Jackson. Go to the Sharkies this weekend. Thanks to Ella Walsh, James Vass, and all of the team at Vanta for their support. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and of course, you can see us on YouTube. You might be watching, and startupdaily.net, and my good friends at Smart Company. Have a read of them too, my new siblings. We'll learn out how to niggle each other. We'll have to work on that. Of course, you can get all the news for free on startupdaily.net. See you next Friday. Bye for now.